Hey, GAP Math students, this is a video for percents, ratios, and proportions 18 through 21. So make sure you grab your packet, take that out, and we'll get started. So you should be on this page in the packet. So you can see that this section of objectives is a lot of word problems. Nothing too big for word problems, but a lot of stuff that involves like fractions and percents and decimals and going back and forth between those three things. There's no real special notes in this, so what we're going to do is do a bunch of examples. And then even on some of the other examples we don't do, I'll tell you which problems they're kind of like, so you can give those a try and check your answers. What I'll be doing here is going through the main part of the video. As you see in here, there's going to be a lot of fractions, and I know a lot of you don't like fractions. So the first way, I'm going to go through whatever problems we're going to do with turning things into decimals and things like that, and then when we've done all the problems, I'll say that you could be either done, or I will go back and do the problems as fractions, because some people that are good at fractions, the problems are faster sometimes if you keep them in fractions, or if you're going to be in a certain type of field where you need to use fractions and be good at fractions. I want to make sure you've seen that way of doing it. So we'll see here. We probably got about 10 example problems to do. Some of them go really fast, some of them a little bit longer, and they're not exactly hard or difficult, but you just got to make sure you understand what's being asked and things like that. So we're going to go through some of those. 25, he biked from his house to the post office to pick up a package. The post office is 3 4/5 miles away from his house. Next, he biked to the market for a cold drink. That is 4.25 miles from the post office. His mother picked him up at the market and drove him home, so you don't have to worry about going back. It says how many miles did he bike altogether? Okay, so he biked 3 4/5 miles to get to the post office from his house, and then to get from the post office to the market, he did another 4.25. So we have to figure out how much he biked altogether. So what we're going to do is we just add them up. Now, if you don't like doing fractions, you need to change this to a decimal. Okay, so 3 is the whole number, and a way to change any fraction to a decimal is you just take top divided by bottom. Okay, if we take 4 divided by 5, it's 0.8. So 3 4/5 is the same as 3.8. Then we add 4.25 to it. Okay, now when you do this, you're going to get obviously a decimal. Okay, so now the next step, if we're doing this with fractions, we could just do it, keep it as fractions and have our answer. But if we're doing this without fractions, you've changed it to a decimal. So it's 8 and something. So this is out because it's not 8 point something. Okay, 8 is a whole number. These all have 8 as a whole number. Okay, so now if we want to figure out which one of these equals 8.05, we just divide the fraction part. Okay, so this is going to be 8 point something. Okay, so we're going to take 3 divided by 20. That's 0.15. 3 divided by 20. So 8.15, that's out. Okay, so here's going to be 8 point something. Take 1 divided by 20 to figure out what the fraction part is. And that's 0.5. And that would be our answer. Okay, now you could try this one as well and find that it does not equal. Okay, so again, I will come back at the end of the video and do these as fractions if you're interested in how to do them. you know, if you didn't have multiple choice and you need to write your answer as a fraction, I'll show that at the end. But for a lot of you that don't like the fractions and want to still figure out kind of how to do this, that would be a way of doing it. So next problem, they asked the students in the school to name their favorite class. 1/4 of the students in the school was math class. Another 33% of the students like science class best. What percent of the students in Abrams School had a favorite class other than math or science? So that's going to be very key. Other than math and science. So what I'm going to do first is find out how many of them liked math and science together. Okay, so and then we'll show you how to change that answer at the end. So right away, if we 1/4 like math, 33% like science. Okay, so now the answers are in percent. So let's try to change everything to percent if we can. 1/4. Some of you might know exactly what that is as a percent. Write it down and go. That's fine. Otherwise, you might need to change it to a decimal first. Take 1 divided by 4, it's 0.25. And then to make it a percent, you move it 1, 2. That should be percent. 33%. And you add those up, and you're going to get 58%. Now, you need to realize that's how many like math or science. Okay, so if we want to find how many like something else other than math or science, well, 100% is everybody. So we're going to take 100 minus the percent that like math and science, and that'll tell us how many, what percent like something else. So the answer is 42%. Letter B. Okay. Next one. Also, I don't know if I said this in the beginning, so I'm just going to say it. We're doing kind of quite a few problems here. I may give you 2 days to really work on this one before offering the test. So that's a lot of time. So if you get going in this and you got to hit pause, take a break, whatever, take one to do all the notes and another day to practice problems. It's probably going to be best. So anyways, number 27. 1 week, she went to her health club on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Each day she went to the health club. She jogged on the treadmill for 4/5 of an hour, lifted weights for 1/4 of an hour, and then cooled down by stretching for 1/4 of an hour. On Saturday, she rode her bike for 3/5 of an hour. How many hours did she spend riding her bike and exercising at her health club that week? So this is just all these, and this doesn't work in every problem, but in this problem, all these fractions are amounts of time she biked or exercised, and they just want to know how much all of it is together. Okay, so we would take 4/5 plus 1/4. These are all fractions of an hour. Okay, now again, I'll come back later and keep these as fractions, but right here, if you don't like fractions, we can do this in decimals and figure it out. Type 4 divided by 5 is 0.8. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. And 3 divided by 5 is 0.6. Okay, so you want to add those up. And you're going to get 1.9. And actually, looking at the problem closer, I made a mistake. Okay, so I'm actually We're going to take some of this. Now, again, I'm not going to stop the video and re-record because mistakes happen. So I wanted to show you what I did wrong. Each day she was there, she did the 4/5, 1/4, and the 1/4. Saturday was not a multiple day, so I can't add these all together first and then like multiply by 3 because of the 3 days. So I made a mistake. So the first thing I'm going to do is when she goes to her club, how much she exercises. She does, and it was kind of like right, but I added one thing in there that we shouldn't have. So this is what she does at the club. Okay, and so we had done these. So the mistake I made was the extra 3/5 is a one-time thing per week. So when we do this, this is how much she does each day she goes to the club. Okay, and that's going to be 1.3 hours each day. Okay. Now she goes there 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we have to go 3 times 1.3, and then also add on the 1 day of the biking, which was the 3/5, which I wrote down as a decimal was 0.6. Okay, so first of all, 3 times 1.3 gives us 3.9. So that's how much she works out at the club. She had the 0.6 hours of biking on Saturday. And that's going to give us 4.5 hours total. Okay, now 4.5. Now it works out nice with these multiple choice. We don't have to test them. If we're confident we did this, 4.5, this is 3 point something that's out. 38 is way too big. 4.5, well, we should know 0.5 is a half. Otherwise, even if we didn't, it's the only one with 4 as a whole number. It says 5 whole number, that's out. Okay. So as you can see, it's not a super hard problem, but you have to read problems carefully. I read it wrong at first, made a mistake, noticed it, went back and figured it out. So again, we added up the 4/5, the 1/4, and the 1/4 because she does that at the club. And then we multiplied that number by 3 because she goes to the club 3 days a week. Then we added the one-time bike of 0.6 hours. That's how we got to 4.5. Okay. All right. Next problem. Mr. Evans, 13.5 cups of compost and 3.5 cups of organic fertilizer to make plant food. He evenly distributed the plant food among 5 bushes. How many cups of plant food were used for each rose bush? Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we have the parts of the plant food, but we don't know how much actual plant food there is. Okay, so let's first do that. Well, if these are the parts of the plant food, let's add those up. Okay, so if we do that, we're going to have 13 point. If we go 1 divided by 3, that's 0.3 repeating, meaning 13.33333 and so on. 7.5, that one we should probably just know is 7.5. And then plus 3 point, and then again, if we do 1 divided by 3 is 0.3 repeating. So now we're going to add these up. Now, when you add these up, don't just type in 13.3. Make sure to remember, put 13 point and then hit a bunch of 3s. You know, if you have like the calculators at school, it would just stop you. If you're doing it on your phone, the numbers kind of start getting smaller. Just do a bunch. Do like at least 10 of them. Then hit plus 7.5. And then plus, again, you got to do 3.3333333, a bunch of 3s. Now, if you do enough, it will kind of round off, but you'll see the pattern. It's going to equal 24.1, and then it's 6666 like this. Or we can also write that as the repeating over the 6. So that's the first. This is how many. The main question though is how many cups of plant food were used on each rose bush. So he took the total and evenly distributed it among evenly distributed the plant food among 5 rose bushes. Means he split it up among 5. And the operation that would mean split up is divide. So we can bushes. Now, if you didn't hit clear on your calculator, you already have this in there. You can leave that there, or again, you have to hit 24.1 and then 6666, a bunch of 6s. Okay, I'm going to hit divided by 5, and if you do it along with us to see if you can get it right. If you do that in your calculator, you would get this 4.8, and then it's 33333, meaning just the 3 is repeating. Okay, so again, we have it pretty nice here with the multiple choice because only one of them has 4 as the whole number. So those are all out. Now, if we just want to make sure to kind of double check, we could have made a mistake over here. The decimal part and the fraction part should be equivalent. So if I take in my calculator 5 divided by 6, I should get the 0.83 with the 3 repeating. And I do. Okay, so this equals this also. So that's our answer. Okay. So again, make sure you read the question properly. You had to add them all up, and then you also had to divide by 5 because they're distributed evenly. This one's going to be a little faster. They have a tabletop that she wants to paint blue and brown. Tabletop has an area of 17.8 square feet. She wants to paint 3/4 of the tabletop brown. How many square feet will she paint down? So even with percents, if you use the word of the tabletop, okay, if they have a fraction or a decimal or a percent of something, you multiply. So we are taking 3/4 of, meaning multiply the total area, and that's how much is going to be brown. So now this one's nice because all the answers are written as a decimal. So let's do everything as a decimal. Okay, so 3/4. If we type 3 divided in this, you should know this one, but if you type in 3 divided by 4, it's 0.75. And then, so 0.75 times the 17.8. And it's going to come out to be 13.35. Okay. Now, again, if you get an answer here that's more than 17.8, then you know you did something wrong, because if it only has an area of 17.8 square feet, you can't paint more of that brown. Okay, that's how much there is. All right. Number 30, a jeweler used a 3-ounce portion of gold to make 2 earrings and a necklace. Each earring, so let's used 5/16 ounce of gold, and the necklace used 5/8 ounce of gold. How much gold remained? So key here is you started out with 3, you use some, and then that's how much remains. So what we're doing in words here is we have what we start out with. We're going to subtract what we use, and that's going to give us what remains. Okay, so we can do this in a few different orders. What you might want to do first is just let's figure out, start is we know that's 3. So let's figure out what we used. Okay, so what we use each earring used 5/16 ounces of gold. So there's each earring means 2 earrings. And let me erase that. So 2 times 5/16. And then we also used, add on to that, 5/8 ounce of gold for the necklace. All right, so if you don't like working with fractions, again, this might be one of the ones I don't think I'll redo all the problems doing fractions later, but some of them. But if you don't like fractions, change these to decimals. So take 5 divided by 16. It's 0.3125 plus 5 divided by 8. It's 0.625. So I'm going to multiply 2 times 0.3125, and it gets 0.625. So that's how much used for the earrings, plus 6.25, which is used for the necklace. I'm going to add them together. And that gives me 1.25. Okay? So that's how much is used. Now, if you look here, what we said, we're going to take what we start with, subtract what we used, and that's going to equal what remains. So we're going to take 3 minus 1.25. That's going to give us 1.75. Now again, some of you might be able to look at this right away, know exactly what that is as a fraction. Some of you may not. But the first thing, it has a whole number of 1. So these two are out. Okay. And then, again, you might be able to just look at this and do this. 1.75. Yeah, it's going to be that one. If you didn't, you know this is going to have a whole number of 1. And then 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. This has a whole number of 1. 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. There's your answer. Okay. I think we're a few left here. So again, if this is getting a little long, hit pause, go take a break, come back. Okay. 31. School band is practicing for the end of year performance. 1 week, the band practiced after school 4 times for 2 1/4 hour each time. The next week, they practiced 5 times for 3 1/4 hour each time. Hour practice. So the key here is they didn't just practice 2 1/4 and 3 1/4 and add it together. They practiced 4 times for 2 1/4 hours each. And then the next week, 5 times. So for the 2 weeks, we got to take what they did in week 1. We have to add to it what they did in week 2, and that equals the total. So week 1, what they did, 4 times they went 2 1/4 hours. So that's 4 times 2 1/4. Plus the next week, week 2, they did 5 times at 3 1/4 each time. Okay. So again, if we're going to change these to decimals, if you don't like the fractions, 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. So that's 2.25. 3 1/4 is 3.25. So 3 is the whole number. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. So now we take 4 times 2.25. First week, they did 9 hours. Second week, we take 5 times 3.25. I'm going to get 16.25. We're going to add those together, and we're going to get 25.25. So now again, if we're looking at these, we should have our answer. The only one with a whole number of 25 is B. And if you want to double check, 25 is the whole number. 1 divided by 4, that is 0.25, and it matches up. Okay. 32. They picked tomatoes from her garden to make 21 cups of chopped tomatoes. She used 4 2/3 cups of chopped tomatoes to make spaghetti sauce, and 3.5 to make some chili. She separated the remaining chopped tomatoes into 2 equal portions and froze them. How many cups of tomatoes were in each portion that she froze? So again, we got to take what we have to start. We got to subtract what we used. That'll give us the remains. But then we took the what was remaining, and we split it up into 2 equal portions. And that's what we're looking for. So again, let's figure out what we used first. Okay, so she used 4 2/3 to make spaghetti sauce, 3.5 to make some chili. So what we used is 4 2/3 plus 3.5. So 4 2/3. Either you may know that, or if you type in 2 divided by 3, it's 0.6 repeating. 3.5, that's 3.5. Okay, again, if you're typing this in, don't hit just 4.6. You got to hit 4.6 with a bunch of sixes. Then hit plus 3.5, and you should get 8.16, and then with the 6 repeating, so 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, so on. Okay, make sure answer that's what we've used. So then we have to take what we started with. We started with 21 cups. We subtract what we used, and that gives us our remaining. So again, a bunch of sixes if you're typing that in, and you're going to get 12.83 repeating, and just the 3 is repeating. So that's what we have remained. Now it says we have to take that and split it into 2 equal groups, and that's how much in each portion that she froze. So we're going to take the 12.83 repeating divided by 2. So if you still have that in your calculator, you just leave it there, hit divided by 2, otherwise you got to retype it out. And we should get 6.41, and then the 6 repeating. Okay. So let's double check stuff here. If we did this right, 6 is the whole number, so this should be our answer, but that is 12, that is 4, that is 7. Let's double check the decimal part. If we hit 5 divided by 12, that also does give us the 0.41 with the 6 repeating, so they match up. Okay. All right. Much quicker problem here. A couple quick ones. We're almost done. 33. A penny has a thickness of 0.1555 centimeters. They place pennies in a tube until it's filled. How many pennies are in the tube? The tube has a height of 12 2/5. So what's happening is you have this tube, and each penny you put in there has a height. No, that's not even. But pretend these are equal, and they go all the way up, and each one of those is 0.155. Now the whole thing from top to bottom is 12 2/5. Okay, so sometimes if you are struggling with what to do, you can think of using different numbers, or just think in this picture, I had to take this distance, and they're made up of a bunch of these. So it means you're splitting this distance up into these little amounts. Okay, if ever you have to split up something, that means divide. So we are taking 12 2/5, and we are stacking up a bunch of things that are a height of 0.155. Okay. You know, a way that this would be easier is if you had a height of 12 and let's say there were 2 centimeters apiece. Well, you take 12 divided by 2, there'd be 6 of them. Okay. So just because there's a decimal here doesn't make it any more difficult to figure out what to do, or actually what to do. Sometimes it's more difficult to figure it out because people don't like decimals and fractions. But so now what we do here, change this to a decimal. 2 divided by 5 is 0.4. We're going to divide that by 0.155. So 12.4 divided by 0.155, and we get 80. Okay, letter B. And that should make some sense because if you think about it, it's got to be more than 12 because the pennies are less than 1 centimeter. If it was 12 centimeters high and each one was 1 centimeter, then there would be 12. Okay, so there should be more than 12, and there's quite a bit more because they're pretty thin pennies. 34. Noah conducted a survey to find out what classes students in the school like best. He found 3/10 of the students liked English, and 62% of the students liked math. It says, what was the difference in the percentage who liked math and who liked English? So this one's a little different than a problem we did earlier on that kind of looked the same. We did one that had a fraction and a percent, but it said how many liked classes other than those. Okay, this one we are keeping in with what they're looking for or what they're talking about, English and math, but they're asking what's the difference between the two. Okay, so that means how many, in this case, how many more liked the math than liked English. So answers are in percent, so let's leave things in percent. Now, if you don't know by looking at, we got to take the bigger minus the smaller, or what's the difference of the people who liked math and the percentage who liked English. So they say math first, so let's put that. We got to subtract the people that like English. Okay, so now again, let's write this as a decimal. 3 divided by 10 is 0.3. Now to subtract, we got to have them both either as decimals or both as percent. So since the answer is in percents, let's change this to a percent. Percent is 2 spots bigger, okay, than the decimal version. So we go 1, 2, so it's 30. Then we subtract, 62 minus 30 is 32%. Okay. All right, so we're going to look at one more page. Again, I know this is long, break after each page, but there's a lot of different types of problems in here. Let me see if this one is like one of the other ones. Maybe we can skip this one. We can actually skip. Oh, let me see. 135. No, this one's a little different. Eventually, we're going to be getting ones that are the same as other ones. All right, let's take a look at this. It's kind of similar. It says school cheerleaders are getting ready to perform first football game. They practice 28 hours during the first 3 weeks of school. The first week they practice 2 2/5 each day for 4 days. Second week they practiced a total of 8 3/4. How many hours do they practice the third week? Okay, so what we got here is the total is going to equal the first week plus the second week plus the third week. Okay, or in other words, we know the first and the second, or at least how to get there. And we don't know the third, but we know the total. So let's start filling in things. Okay. First week, they practiced 2 2/5 hour. Well, actually, let's fill in. We got 28 here. Then, first week, 2 2/5 hours for 4 days. That means we have 4 days. They went 2 2/5. Okay. So we multiply those, we'll know how much they did the first week. The second week just says they practiced 8 3/4 hours. So we don't have to do anything there. And then the third week is what we're looking for. Okay, so let's get some numbers in here, and then we'll talk about what we need to do. So here we take 4 times 2 point. Now we take 2 divided by 5, that's 0.4, plus 8.3/4. You probably should know what that is as a decimal. It's 0.75, but if not, you type 3 divided by 4, 0.75. Erase that. And then plus the third week, which we don't know. So 4 times 2.4 is going to be 9.6. We have plus 8.75 plus this. So now let's simplify this and kind of get those together. So we're going to take 9.6 plus 8.75. Get 18.35 plus something equals 28. So even though we really haven't looked at algebra yet, to solve this, if you have to add two things and need to equal this, it just means you subtract this other thing from it. Okay, it's like if 10 equals 7 plus what? Well, 10 minus 7 is 3. And that's how you figure it out. So here, we're going to take this and we're going to subtract that. So 28 minus 18.35 is going to be 9.65. That's how much they practiced the third week. So now let's look over here. There's 2 that have 9 as the whole number. So this is out, this is out. Okay, so now let's check these decimals. This one's going to be 9 point. We got to take 13 divided by 20 in our calculator. And that one does equal 0.65. There's our answer. Okay. All right. We got a couple of quicker ones here. This last week during swim practice, this person swims 25 laps in 12.7 minutes. This week, they swim 24 laps in 13.3 minutes. What's the difference between the average lap time this week and last week? So first of all, average lap time. You got to take, they want to know minutes per lap. So to find the average, you have to take, if it's minutes per lap, that's minutes divided by laps. So it took 12.7 minutes. You split that up between 25 laps. So 12.7 divided by 25. 0.508. That was minutes per lap. That's week 1. Okay, or last week. This week, 13.3 minutes to do 24 laps. 13.3 divided by 24. And this one goes like this, and that was minutes per lap. So now the question was, what is the difference between the average lap time this week and last week. So this week, and again, this is where doing as decimals gets a little long. You got to make sure you type it in right. Now, you could have this in your calculator still. You'd keep it in there. Otherwise, you'd hit 0.5541 and then 6666, a bunch of sixes. And then because that's for difference, that's subtraction. And last week was this. So we take that first number minus 0.508. And we get 0.0461 with the 6 repeating. Okay. Now, if we look at that, it doesn't show an exact answer like this. But when you have decimals, a lot of times they're going to round. We have a 0 in the first spot after the decimal. The only one that does is B. So let's see if this one makes sense. I'm guessing this and this are for sure out. This one probably also. But if we rounded this to the spot where they write it to, they have a 4 there. If you look at the next number, because it's between 5 and 9, that bumps this one up if we're rounding. So the answer should be B. Okay. They probably could have wrote in the question that, you know, round the answer to the nearest hundredth or something like that. So, almost there. There's a lot of problems in this section. There's still going to be a lot of problems we don't do, and I'll give you hints on those ones. We got number 37 here. We're going to skip 38. 37. They're going to travel each month to visit the stores he owns. Last month, he traveled an average distance of 85.5 miles each week for 3 weeks. This month, he will travel an average distance of 120.8 miles each week for 4 weeks, visiting other stores. How many more miles will he travel visiting his stores this month than last month? So how many more means we got to take what he travels this month and minus last month. Okay. So this month, 128 or 120.8 miles each week for 4 weeks. So 4 weeks, each of them are 120.8. Last month, 85 miles each week for 3 weeks. So 3 times he went 85.5 miles. So now we multiply this. 4 times 120.8. We get 483.2 minus the next month or last month he went 3 times 85.5. That's 265.5. So now we take the 483.2 minus the 265.5, and we get make sure. Let's see. I have made mistakes before. I got 217.7. So let's see what if I did something wrong here. Last month, 85.5 times 3. Oh, I know what I did wrong. So I set up everything correctly. Okay. But I copied it down wrong. That's why you got to be careful, especially when you're trying to go fast. This is what it actually was. It was 256.5. Okay, so 483.2 minus 256.5. So I just inverted 2 numbers. Okay, and there's the right answer. So I had something wrong. I didn't see the right answer. could try to pick the closest one. Otherwise, take a look. It was an easy mistake. I just copied something down wrong. We're going to skip 30 different types of problems. This is going to be kind of like number 25. So if you want to try this one on your own, you can kind of look at 25 as a reference. Okay. And we got 3 more problems we're going to do, and then I can give you hints on what ones you're going to do for the other ones, or what you're going to look at for the other ones. Number 39, they asked several students to name their favorite class. You found 34% of the students like science class best. Another 2/5 of the students like social studies class best. What fractions of the students liked either science or social studies classes best? Okay, so we have 1 in percent, 1 in fraction. Answers are in fractions. So if you could do fractions, you may want to do it that way. But what I'm going to say is they both can be converted to decimals pretty easily. So we want to find what fraction of the people like one or the other. So we're just going to group those together. People that, if there was 3 people that like science and 4 people that like studies, how many liked one or the other? It would be 7. Okay, you just add them together. So here we're going to have 34% like science plus 2/5 like social studies. What's that going to equal? So let's change this to decimal. Move it over, 0.34. And then this to decimal, 2 divided by 5 is 0.4. We add those together, we get 0.74. Now, again, the reason I move them both to decimal is that they both can it's one step to get them both to decimal. Okay, the percent you move it over twice, the fraction you divide, and we get 0.74. Now, check your answers, see which one is 0.74. Okay, so we just take our choices. 3 divided by 50 is 0.06. So out. 37 divided by 50, that is 0.74. That is the correct answer. Okay, 2 to go. Well, it's been a long video. 2 to go. Says he raises German Shepherd puppies. She kept track of the weight for 4 months. So the puppy gained 6.5 pounds the first month, 10.5 the second month, 8 3/4 third month, and 8 1/4 the fourth month. What was the puppy's average weight gain? So average means you add things up and divide by how many times it happens. So what we got to do is we got to add up the different amounts of weight gain in these 4 months. And then we have to divide that by 4. So these are pretty easy decimals. 6.5 is 6.5. 10.5 is 10.5. 8 3/4 is 8.75. 8 1/4 is 8.25. Divided by 4. So 6.5 plus 10.5 plus 8.75 plus 8.25. You add those all up, equals 25. Divide by 4, that's 4 different months. We get 6.25 per month. So again, looks like I may have wrote something down wrong. So let's go back. And I knew this number seemed pretty wrong. Let's, again, I don't redo things when I redo the video when I make a mistake. I typed in my calculator 1.5 here instead of 10.5. So I'm going to go back. 6.5 plus 10.5 plus 8.75 plus 8.25 equals and then divided by the 4 months. So we divide that, we get 8.5, and this one should be pretty easy to see. It's only one with an 8 as a whole number, and 8.5, hope most of you know that's 8.5. Okay. Last one. The White family drove to the beach for a vacation. They drove 2.75 hours, average speed of 42 miles an hour, 1.75 hours at average speed of 52 miles an hour, and 5 hours at average speed of 35 miles an hour. How far did the White family drive to get to the beach? So if they drove 2.75 hours at this speed, 42 miles per hour, the way you find the distance is you multiply that. Okay, if you just think I went 2 hours at 50 miles an hour, I went 100 miles. It's 50 miles for the first hour, 50 miles for the second hour. So to get that idea of I should be multiplying. Now they just did this 3 different times at different speeds, and we're just going to add them all together. So we have so down here we have 2.75 hours times 42 miles an hour. We're going to add onto that 1.75 hours going 52 miles an hour. Add onto that 5 hours at going 35 miles an hour. Okay, so 2.75 times 42 is 115.5 miles when they went that speed. Then 1.75 hours times 52 miles an hour. They went 91 miles going that speed. Then 5 hours times 35 miles per hour. So you multiply those. They went 175 miles when they went that speed. So now I add these up. Add 3 different numbers. Again, I'm being a little more careful at typing these in because I made a couple mistakes today. 381 miles, or 381.5 miles, right here, letter D. Okay, so that's the problems we're going to do. As far as examples, I am just going to go through and write down what to look at to do these other ones. So number 42 is going to be like number 31, except you're going to subtract, not add. So when you look back at that one, you'll know what I mean. 43. This is like number 29. 44. Is like number 26. 45 is like number 39. 46 like number 37. 47 is like 34. 48 is you can do everything like 31, but you're going to subtract at the end. So see if you figure out what that means. Again, you always can ask me questions. Oh, no, that's what I should have wrote down here. So this one is like my fault. Like number 31, but subtract at the end. So this one, erase, sorry about that. $48 is like 25. I'll write that down here, like 25. And the final two. This one is like 41. And so is the last one. All right, so that is a long video. I did say I would do the other ones with fractions at the end. I think what I'm going to do is, if you want to see any of these done in fractions, let me know, and I will make a new video for that. Okay. Otherwise, I know most of you don't like fractions, so I showed you more of the method of changing them to decimals and figuring it out that way, which is going to work fine for multiple choice type tests and things like that. But if you know you're going to be college bound, or know you're going to be in a field like construction or something and need to know how to add and subtract, multiply and divide with fractions, you can let me know how to, if you want to look at how to do any of these problems with fractions. I'll redo them on a new video, which not everyone's going to have to look at. But anyways, there's a lot of problems here. I'm going to give you at least 2 days probably. Options, kind of copy these down, practice some problems before asking for a test. So again, you should be taking pictures of these notes, sending them to me. This one's going to be worth more than a lot of the other ones because there's more problems here. So if you have any questions, let me know.